All right, 3, 2, 1, and we are live. Hey, good day, everyone. This is CJ with the Cannabis Oklahoma Magazine podcast, Cannabis Culture, and it's Friday. It's always exciting to jump on for a podcast on Friday. I'm your host with co-host Laura, and Laura is the founder, editor of Cannabis Oklahoma Magazine. And we have a special guest with us today. We have Tony, who is the chef extraordinaire with edibles and infusing products. So Laura, I'm going to turn over to you. How are both of you doing today?
We're doing great today.
Great. Thanks for having me on.
We had a big event for him last night.
It's a pleasure to have you, and we chatted a little bit, Tony, before we went live, and it sounds like you had a very successful event last night. Why don't you share a little bit for our listeners what exactly you did last night?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was another first that I never saw coming here in the cannabis industry in Oklahoma, because last night the Northwest Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce had their restaurant tour and tasting. They had about 25 of some of the largest restaurants here in town there, and this was the first time at a public event, first time at a non-cannabis public event that I've been able to come in and do some infused cooking. So I actually made a hemp-infused banana Foster's sundae, but I'm still just kind of floating, whatever above cloud 9 is, because I can't even believe that I was there. I finally got recognized as a hemp infusion chef, within the chefs and the culinary professionals here in Oklahoma City. So that was huge.
It was pretty awesome. I was able to be there with him and John Frazier from Old School and Company, and we had a blast. Mary Jane Media was there, and DC, and we had fun. We took a bunch of pictures and got a bunch of people to go upstairs and eat his sundae, which was super awesome. We just kind of goofed off and had a blast. So pretty awesome to be able to be a part of, something like the Chamber of Commerce in Oklahoma City, accepting infused meals into their, restaurant tasting. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, big shout out to Laura and the magazine for coming out. Like you said, we had Mary Jane Media there and Old School. It was so cool to see cannabis people coming out to an Oklahoma City restaurant tour. And we really made a great showing there. Everybody was talking about our group and what we were doing. So big shout out to everybody that was there.
John made his impression with his marijuana shirt.
Right? He always does.
It had all of his little leaves all over his little button-up shirt, and it just fit really well. We were definitely the talk of the tasting.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty darn neat. Congratulations to both of you on it. It sounds like a wonderful event, and you're correct with getting some of those particular business units, industries involved to accept the industry and in terms of the edibles. And this is it's interesting that, Tony, you're joining us today, because I just read an article and it was talking specifically around cannabis and hemp more as a superfood to be included in our diet regimen in terms of what we're eating. And Tony, I'm sure that you probably have a lot to say in terms of your thoughts on how that, and I think it's important. I think what we're doing here on this podcast is important to, educating even the most skeptic people in regards to hemp and cannabis as it relates to us. But Laura, we've had this conversation before that, hey, you know what, God put this plant here on earth for a reason, and we should be leveraging it. So Tony, why don't you share a little bit your thoughts? Why don't you share a little bit around your thoughts in regards to, let's start with more about your background and how you got started as a chef, started infusing, and then just your thoughts overall on infusing products and why it's important.
Yeah, I would say just following up from what you said, I think God gave us this plant too, but I think he meant us to eat it. So I can talk all day about this being a superfood. I believe that was intended before. This plant has a bunch of crazy names like dope and weed and marijuana. I call that the M word now. I don't even use it. To me, it's an herb and it's a superfood. So I really appreciate you bringing that up, Carlos. In fact, I just created a Green Chef Tony YouTube. And the very first one on there is a 30-minute lecture that I rolled out with Green Grow Expo in Lawton down in July. But I rolled out that thought. Cannabis is a superfood. Depending on how we treat it and what we do with it and how we use it, it should be a superfood. So I'll tell you more about Green Grow Expo later. But again, coming up here in Tulsa, I'm going to be talking about how this is a superfood and why we should use it. But to answer your question, Carlos, I got started as a chef really 40 years ago. I joke that I've got, so many years of business management experience and experience in psychology and experience in corporate trainers. And, all that adds up to work experience. I've got 20, 25 years of work experience. But I started cooking with my grandma when I was 5, and I had so much fun making Thanksgiving dinner with her. I signed back up for Christmas dinner that year. So, yeah, I've been cooking with my Okie grandma, my Greek grandpa, and my multicultural mom who's traveled halfway across the world, and she always brings back stuff from like Peru and Brazil for me, and we make all these exotic dishes. So, I've got 40 years of experience cooking. It's more than doing anything else. But what kind of capstone that was, I worked for a Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club. Oklahoma's only equivalent of a 5-star restaurant. I worked up in the flambe side, which is tableside presentation of French flambe dishes, and so I was a tableside flambe chef. So that's when I was actually trained as a chef, and it took me from being a good cook to a good chef, I'd say. But it really just gave me the confidence that I knew if I could stand up there and cook a steak au poivre or a flaming banana Foster's or a Caesar salad from scratch, I knew if I could do that tableside for millionaires and they loved it, then I had something. So it took my skills to a whole nother level where I love cooking. I love good food. There's not enough of it around. I see that trend changing, but good food and good clean food does so much for our body and our mind and our spirit and everything. So
what was the precipice, or what pushed you into infusing food?
Well, it's actually part of my patient story. I don't know I could do a 3-hour podcast on my patient story, so I don't know how far you guys want to go down there, but yeah, ultimately it started with me getting hit by a car while I was riding a bicycle. Ironically, I was training for a 420-mile bike ride across Iowa. And in the training for that in New York, I got hit by a car, started chronic pain, inflammation, a number of physical problems that I tried to solve with pain pills. They didn't really work. Doctor wanted to do surgery. I used cannabis to get off of those pharmaceuticals, came back and said, no, thanks, doc. I don't want the surgery. And by the way, here's your pills back. They're not used to hearing that. But then a couple of years after that, a similar issue, I ended up on 5 different pharmaceuticals, this time targeting what I'd call brain health. But they diagnosed me as depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD, and there was a few others flying in. But the reality is when I got down to the root cause of all of my illnesses, I solved it with cannabis, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and getting my gut right. The biggest thing I teach people with cannabis is hemp protein. You can get it just about at any grocery store now. Hemp protein is one of the best things you can do for your gut, for inflammation, for brain fog, depression, you name it. At least that's been my patient story. That's all my experience. I could talk at length about that, but all of those things caused me to start being an infusion chef because ultimately I have 8 years of experience of being a patient, and I could never figure out why sometimes the plant worked for me. Sometimes it didn't work that much, and honestly, sometimes it didn't work at all, and that just didn't make sense to me. So I kept researching, and because my background in education is in psychology, I applied psychological research principles in the kitchen to figure this thing out. There were several variations that I had to make. One is you just can't smoke it all the time. You get symptom relief with smoking it, but you've got to get the plant in your body to really get it working. You need full spectrum plant material in your body. One is I had to get my CBD count up a lot higher. The CBD helped with some of the brain fog and depression issues for me. It also helped the gut, helped my body get into a healing protocol. But again, hemp protein, digestive enzymes, just very basic plant stuff that we should be getting in our food source that we often don't anymore. Some of those things put my body in what I call a healing protocol. So I believe cannabis and cooking with it and eating it 3 to 5 times a day, that's all part of why I started infusing food as a chef, is because I wanted to teach people, and help them avoid some of those pitfalls I ran into with that 8 years of research, because it was tough at times when the plant didn't work for me,
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead and continue, please.
No, I understand that completely. So what was the main digestive enzyme that you were using for, you have like specific that you focus on? Because I've found Crohn's patients.
And I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but I'm about to launch a Chef Tony Green and Clean product line that'll have digestive enzymes, probiotics, and colon
Like
cleanse, and liver cleanse, detox. So I can answer that question when I have my bottle in front of me, because I'll show you the label.
We'll have to have you back on then.
Right.
But so we had a Crohn's patient recently that we got him on the raw cannabis, and then we also put him on turmeric and some cordyceps, and he was to the point where he was almost ready to give up. I mean, he wasn't eating, he wasn't sleeping, his inflammation was awful. 3 days and all of his inflammation was gone. He was gone. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah. Turmeric's another herb that I incorporate into this protocol. It's a great one. It's great for inflammation, but it's also great for gut inflammation. And just like you just referenced with Crohn's, I believe, and Hippocrates said it best like 2,500 years ago. He said the root cause of all disease begins in our gut. I completely agree with that. Crohn's is a great example. We know that is true with Crohn's disease. But the reality is, if we treat the gut, what happens is it treats the whole body, is the simplest way to explain that. But ultimately, what I found in my patient story was I was getting inflammation in my gut. I started suffering from like leaky gut type symptoms. The inflammation would spread to my body. So about 24 to 36 hours after I ate the wrong things, I would be, just full of inflammation, full of chronic pain. And then about 48 to 72 hours in, after I'd eaten food, I could tell I was having a depression, anxiety type reactions to the food. So I believe it takes 2 to 3 days for us to process all of this food when we eat something that's not clean. And it will. It'll affect our gut. It'll affect our brain. It'll affect every part of our body. But it's ultimately inflammation in the gut, spreading to the body, inflammation, then spreading to the brain. They're all related.
Well, and then it's about driving awareness to that, because we're not raised with that knowledge any longer. The majority of us aren't. And even drinking liquids with your meals, I mean, your body has a natural ability to heal itself. It has its natural dilution process. You cannot digest food if you drink liquids while you're eating, because it dilutes your ability to digest it, and then it goes out and creates other illnesses in the body. So,
and what's ironic about that, Laura? The worst thing you can do, you can have a little bit of liquid with your meal. It's not too bad, but you're right. It does affect the digestion. But the worst thing you can do is put an ice cold beverage in your system before, during, or immediately after a meal. And as Americans, what do? We eat more ice than any country I've ever seen, with our drinks. So we are icing down our beverages, and that is inflaming our gut before we even put these foods in there. So you're absolutely right.
Absolutely. And then also the protein intake. Most people take the most amount of protein at night during dinner time, right before they go to bed, and they lay down. They're not able to digest the food. So then it's, creating all kinds of illnesses and bacteria in the body, and, weight gain and all kinds of things. So you're supposed to eat the most protein in the morning, and then in the afternoon, and then the least amount of protein at night. And you're not supposed to eat past 8 o'clock. It's just amazing what, just the cannabis plant has caused me to reach out and, other avenues of natural health also, because there's so many things we can do.
And I'm sure you're like me, you learned all this the hard way, right?
Absolutely.
I get it.
Yeah,
I just want to follow up on what Laura said, because the best thing that I did for my health is I began intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is when you choose about an 8-hour window every day where you're going to eat. Like Laura said, you typically should cut it off by 8 o'clock and not eat anything after that. But I generally now, I only eat between like 2 o'clock and 6 o'clock, and it's one small meal, usually at lunch, and something bigger in the evening. But I say all that to say, my intermittent fasting protocol is unique because I incorporate hemp protein in the intermittent fasting. So I believe any liquids, any proteins we're getting from those liquids, our body can digest easier during that, and it can activate that healing protocol. So that's one unique thing that I talk about when it comes to intermittent fasting. But what Laura's talking on is spot on, and that's part of my healing protocol.
Yeah, that's great information, and thank you for sharing that. I think in part we're starting to see a lot more medical professionals jumping on board in terms as it relates to, heal the gut, heal the mind. There's so many things that inflammation does, and balancing that. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see the medical professional world starting to understand that perhaps maybe the right thing to do right at the beginning of assessing a patient isn't necessarily to jump right into a prescription medication versus looking at their diet, their intake, and how that affects everything from their health and even their mental health as well. And that's something that that stigma in regards to, either neurological type events with either depression, those types of things, versus really assessing the inflammation that's occurring in the body and the byproducts of what's happening there. So it's exciting times. I want to jump a little bit into some of the foods you're infusing and how specifically you don't have to go to specifically how you're doing it, but what are just some of the meals that you create? And then obviously I think that you might want to share a little bit around temperature and cooking foods, not to jump into a full session, just to understand that certain degrees that the cannabinoids, certain things would not be effective at certain temperatures. So if you want to jump into that and maybe even share, Tony, if you're doing any type of cooking sessions. I know you mentioned a YouTube channel. Are you going to be showing people how to do those things, and how creative are you going to be with your work that you're doing?
Yeah, just so you guys know, you can check me out on Green and Clean Chefs on Facebook. I've already got some videos out there. I've got some infused oil videos. Some of the if you guys have, I'll definitely answer kind of an overview about cooking with cannabis here. But if you have more detailed questions or you want more details, follow me, Green and Clean Chefs on Facebook, Green Chef Tony on Instagram and YouTube. There's a lot more coming out there. So definitely a lot more video and media content being produced as we speak around all this. So I'm excited about that for next year. But one of the best things I can tell you guys about cooking with cannabinoids, as I like to call it, because I think all of the cannabinoids are important. It's not just cannabis. It's not just THC. All of the cannabinoids play a role in this. So full spectrum is vitally important. That's my first tip. You're going to get much better results if you're using a full spectrum product. That was one of the things that I felt like I was missing out on when I was experimenting, trying to grow this. The other is low and slow when you're cooking. People worry about cooking THC, cooking it too long. One of the mistakes I used to make is I used to cook my infused coconut oil for about 24 hours. And the reason I did it is, again, I was learning based off of psychological research. So it was trial and error in my kitchen. I knew that if I cooked it that long and I took a spoon, man, I could really feel it. It felt good. I could, it made me relax, helped me sleep better. What I didn't know now that I do after, really getting more education and as that's all opened up with legalization, I've learned so much more. And the reality is all I was doing was cooking it so long, it was releasing CBN. For those of you who don't know, CBN is what helps us with sleep. As the plant ages or as we cook it at a certain temperature, it's going to release more and more CBN. And ultimately, it's just going to make you really sleepy. Or my issue is I get really groggy in the morning. I'd be like, why does cannabis make me so groggy in the morning? I don't like this. It wasn't the cannabis. It was me. I was the idiot who was cooking it too long, So, I know you guys are laughing and smiling there. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what things do you have coming up? I know you said something about a patient lounge.
Yeah, got a couple big announcements. It'll be coming out at Green Grow Expo in Tulsa. I told Laura I'd give you guys a little preview. We are planning on announcing Oklahoma's first patient lounge. A patient lounge is something that's pretty tricky because we're not going to sell any plant material, so it's kind of hard to bring in money in the cannabis space, if you're not selling plant products. But it's the trick about that is figuring out what to do with the space and how it can actually support itself. So I believe we've got a great plan because by day it's going to be an education center. It's going to be for cannabis coaches to come in and use, do nutritional coaching, one-on-one coaching, small groups. We actually want to plug in with the local town there, and we're planning on offering evening driving under the influence. So if people get stuck in the court because of cannabis-related stuff, we want to be the resource where people can come so that we're not just being a resource to the cannabis community, we're being a resource to the entire community. So that's why I call it more of an education and community center. We want to get the entire community involved, not just the entire cannabis community involved, which is unique enough because so many groups work on their own and they don't like to work with others. And we just want this to be a co-op. We want it to be a collaboration of great minds. So any of these patient lounges, I'm just telling you, anybody in the cannabis industry and anybody in the community is encouraged to plug in. What were you saying, Laura?
So there's enough for everyone.
Right?
Create awareness. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It'll be education by day, and then it'll turn into more of a lounge by night. It'll have more of a lounge vibe. People will have different dab rigs or things like that people can come in and try. Everybody will have to bring their own cannabis, of course. But the best part is it's going to be a members-only private club. The costs are affordable for everyone. Just as far as and visiting with my attorney, that's the best way to set it up, to where we keep it completely legal. So it'll be a members-only club where people can bring their own stuff in, hang out with their friends, and just have a place where they can consume 420 without everybody watching or judging or whatever.
Right.
So
I think that's awesome.
Many benefits there, I think.
Super exciting.
Yeah. So again, Friday of Green Grow Expo, we will be announcing the location, be unveiling it all. So big press release coming at 5:30 of Friday. What is that? A week from today, right, Laura?
Yes.
Friday, a week from today at 5 o'clock. We have a big press release coming out about that. So special preview just for you guys.
Woo!
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate that. Yeah, it sounds very exciting, and I love the concept that you're building, and in terms of the patient, the education, and then darn it, have some fun too, right? With infusing different products and teaching people so that when they go home, they can make their own meals and do that. So I'm very interested. Make sure when you do that, either do a live stream or lots of photos to share that event. And again, is that event is when? Can you repeat again? When is that event?
The event coming up is September 27th through the 29th, which is Green Grow Expo. And you guys can check this out on greengrowexpo.com. I'll be there, and Laura will be there. Honestly, it's going to be one of the largest, or it should be the largest local gathering of cannabis industry folks. It'll be happening in Tulsa. Green on Greenwood is happening a couple days prior to that. So Green on Greenwood and Green Grow Expo are both doing kind of a 5-6 day venture there. But the 27th, I work with Dr. Regina Nelson a lot. I am a certified clinician and trainer with her. It's one of the few nationally certified curriculums. She's with ECS Therapy. But yeah, at Green Grow Expo on Friday, we'll be kicking it off from 1 to 5 with the Clinician 3 certification. The Clinician 3 certification is the first time it's ever been offered. Again, Dr. Regina already has level 1 and level 2 certifications out there that are both completely certified nationally curriculum. So we're releasing level 3 for the first time. I'm very excited to be part of that and teaching level 1. We're going to have 3 different trainers working with ECS Therapy and rolling this out. But I'm very excited to be working with Dr. Regina Nelson and announcing that Clinician level 3. Again, it'll run from 1 to 5 on Friday, and then we're planning on having a press release and a special party from 5 to 5:30 to celebrate with Dr. Gina, and that's when we're going to announce the new patient lounge.
Woo! Exciting.
Yeah, I just pulled up the website for that event. Yeah, truly looks like a great time. It looks like it's going to be full of different education, some different things that are going on there, and there's still plenty of time to get involved with it, right? I mean,
yeah,
you're 7 days away, and we'll put the link. We'll make sure for the podcast and on the YouTube, we'll make sure to put the link to the event. That way, it'll make it easier for listeners to go and learn about that. And then also, Tony, your work as well. So please make sure that if there's any your social handles and things of that nature, we'll definitely include that in the description of the video. Make it easier for listeners to follow your work.
Great.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah. And the good thing about Tulsa Green Grow Expo is we're literally going to have 3 days of education. I didn't get a chance to talk about Saturday and Sunday, but I believe there's a new schedule that just got pushed out. If not, it's coming later today. But Saturday and Sunday, we've got some of the best educators, not just in the state, but in the nation. We've got nationally recognized people coming in, but locally, we're going to have both Ron Durbin and Bud Scott there. One's on Saturday, one's on Sunday. The Sunday one will actually be a panel where we're bringing in people from, I believe, both OBN, Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics, and Oklahoma OMMA, Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority, to all be on this panel and talk about some of the new changes coming up. So, I think the VIP All Access Pass is only like $99 for this thing. That gets you into all of the education on Saturday and Sunday. And for a business owner, that 1 2-hour session alone is worth it to get to hear that Q&A panel about the new changes, be able to ask any questions you want during the Q&A panel. So we're really doing some unique things. There's actually about half a dozen different education components to this as far as format alone. And then there's a number of different educators in each one of those formats. So in my press release I just wrote up, I said, this is the biggest education rollout the state's ever seen. And because the heart of my mission is education and getting the knowledge out about the plant, I'm just fired up to be working with Green Grow Expo and just so excited and passionate about the education we're going to roll out. Because I know it's not just going to have an impact across Oklahoma. We already see the signs. This is going to have an impact, guys, across the nation with some of this training we're rolling out. And Dr. Regina is already working globally. So I believe we're not just in Tulsa, September 27th through the 29th. We're not just going to have a national and a statewide impact. It's global, guys. That's how big things are happening here in Oklahoma. It so amazes me.
Yeah, very cool. Very exciting. And it sounds like today, I believe the OMMA dropped some new rules in regards to testing. So it's, very important whether you're thinking about getting in the industry or you're a seasoned business owner. The laws, rules are adapting a little bit. So it's just very important. And this event looks like it's going to help communicate that. So definitely go check that out. And then also, Laura, what's new with Cannabis Oklahoma magazines? Is it time for a new release? Is that coming out pretty soon, or?
Yes, it just came out actually on the 15th. So we are out. It's the 15th to the 15th every month. And I mean, every day is new in this industry here. It's pretty awesome. We get to help patients every day. I get a new story or a new miracle that's happened with the plant. I get to meet people like Chef Tony here, who, he's doing some great things with infusing his food and healing people with that intent. And it's just every day is a new opportunity, and it's for healing people and educating people. So I couldn't be happier to be a part of something.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I love about this industry as it continues to evolve. And in particular, you see the health impact that it's making to people's lives. And Tony, you have a great story to share. And I think when you look at a lot of the advocates that are out there, even business owners, a lot of them, that's how they got started in this industry, was seeking alternative health solutions that are making an impact.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
October 11th will be the second when Dr. Regina Nelson will be in for that, and Dr. Dory Abbott, John Frazier, Renee Harper of Green Hope Wellness. They all are going to be in there for the second recording of the live documentary for the Healing Bella and bringing awareness to the alternative, methods for healing. So it's pretty exciting. We have another 5 of those, and we're just all joining forces together and working to try to create awareness as long as possible.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And Tony, please share any closing thoughts for our listeners.
Yeah. So many things I could say. The biggest thing I would say, guys, again, my brand is Green and Clean Chefs. The reason I bring that up is the biggest thing I would say is go green and get clean is the mission that I came up for. It's how this brand was created. And really, go green and get clean just reflects my story. I define clean now as chemical free. And when I say I'm chemical free for 3 years, I'm not just talking about the pills I used to take, pharmaceuticals. I'm talking about Tums. I'm talking about, I shouldn't say that. I didn't say that correct. I'm talking about antacids. I'm talking about all those things we eat as antacids. I'm talking about even antiseptic. I was fishing the other day and I got hooked in the arm with a fish hook. My buddy's like, I got some antiseptic. And I'm like, dude, you don't get it. I'm chemical free. And he's like, what? I don't get it. And I'm like, you're right. Cannabis oil's better. I'm going to put cannabis oil on this wound. And he's like, well, how does it work? Like it's antimicrobial, it's antibacterial, and it promotes healing. So it's way better than that chemical antiseptic you want to use. So when I say chemical free, guys, I've taken it serious because in the elimination diet process that I had to go through to get healing, anytime I use chemicals, I could feel my body react to it.
Absolutely.
So the go green and get clean is my mission. It's my motto. It's my brand. And you'll just, when it comes to green and clean, I hope you'll see a lot more of green and clean and Chef Tony with some exciting things coming up in the near future.
Well, we will definitely be following your work and excited, and congratulations once again on your success. Laura, I'm very thank you for bringing Tony on and inviting him in. And then Laura, any closing thoughts that you want to share with our listeners, any updates or any other exciting things? You always have something going on, Laura, so share what's
it's everywhere. So we're meeting with a lot of patients this week, bringing them resources for medication and something to substitute for that. So we're teaching how to juice raw cannabis, and we're teaching how to incorporate the turmeric and the different natural resources that we have to heal ourselves. We've got the October 11th event coming up with Dr. Regina. We have next Friday the Green Grow event. So it's everywhere.
Awesome.
If you want to log into cannabisoklahomamagazine.com, or you can get on Facebook at Canna Oklahoma Magazine, or on Instagram as CannaMagOK.
Very cool. Excellent. Well, thank you both so much for another great podcast, and we'll be back next Friday. And just so our listeners know, we are looking at upgrading to do call-in questions and everything. So once we get that established, Tony, we'll have you back on, maybe do a live Q&A session for listeners. And then more importantly, please make sure to stay tuned for our work. And there's different ways you can follow us, whether it's on Cannabis Oklahoma Magazine, our Twitter, the Facebook, then also our YouTube. But more importantly, do us a favor, like, share, and also, subscribe to our platforms. In our space, in our industry, Google, the analytics of it, there's a lot of censoring where they don't allow these things to populate. So unless it's shared with our fans and our audience, it really doesn't get known. So that's why we need your help to get that accomplished. And then also just a closing sidebar note. So please, we talked a lot about cannabis as it relates to health. So please make sure, this broadcast is going out, not only in Oklahoma. Please review if you're in a non-legal state. Make sure you check up the laws there, and also before you jump into it, maybe even discuss with a cannabis consultant or medical advisor before beginning a regimen. I think that's very important for our listeners to know.
Absolutely. Thank you, CJ. You're awesome.
Thank you both, and let's do it again sometime soon.
All right. Bye, guys.
Hey, guys, come see me at Green Grow Expo in Tulsa. It's gonna be fun. I got the shirt on, see?
We'll be there.
Thanks. Look forward to it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.